Hello, good evening. I'm Matthew Torres here for OpenLine, filling in for Carrie Sharp, who, by the way, just won the cow milking competition at the fairgrounds. Just saying. Awesome. We have a pretty important topic and a pretty timely topic to talk about, and that is the MLS. Now, as you may remember, last week, City Council did approve ordinances that essentially approved building the stadium at the fairgrounds for the MLS team, but there's still a long road and a fight to stop this. And we do have the organization Save Our Fairgrounds. With me right now is the president, Duane Dominy. To my left and further to my left is the attorney for the group, Jim Roberts. So they're the ones behind this lawsuit that was filed before last week's council meeting. Correct. And so we'll kind of delve into all of what you guys have planned, what you hope to happen. Before we get to that, if anyone has questions or comments, if you'd like to join this conversation, the number is right there on your screen, 615-737+. In the meantime, it goes without saying, you guys, I'm sure, are not happy with what was decided last week. Your reaction?
Well, my reaction is the purpose of the fairgrounds, it has been and remains that, is to host a fair. And the language of the charter is not vague on that. It requires the fair board to host a fair 6 days a year. And so my concern is the city doesn't have the right to ignore their charter or their laws, and there's a number of those that we'll discuss throughout the night. And the purpose of the fairgrounds is to host a fair. And the charter expressly prohibits leasing the property in a way that interferes with that fair.
And for you, Jim?
My biggest concern is that Metro is simply not following the law. That the charter is very clear, the history of the fairgrounds is very clear, and that they are taking steps, quite honestly, with just complete disregard for what they should be doing. And their Metro's position seems to be that no one can challenge them, no one can stop them, that they can do whatever they want. And that makes for bad government and bad governmental policy.
All right, we'll talk more about this lawsuit. But again, if anyone has questions or comments, the number is right there on your screen, 615-737+. In all honesty, going into this meeting, is this what you expected? Is this the outcome that you guys were expecting?
Well, I wasn't sure. The fact is there are a lot of folks involved in this discussion, and there's a lot of moving parts. We had hoped that common sense would prevail and the facts of the proposal would be considered and it would not be moved forward. We'd find an appropriate location for a soccer stadium. That's what we had originally hoped. That's not what happened, and so we're here to bring in the third branch of government, and that's the legislative or the judicial branch. So.
And for you?
I think my involvement began earlier this year, and what I saw was that the Save Our Fairgrounds and the vendors, the flea market participants, were trying very hard to engage the fair board and try to come up with a workable solution. I'm not real surprised because they were rebuffed at every turn. That I never was confident that Metro was going to do the right thing. I felt like they were going to do what they wanted to do, and pretty much to heck with the rest of Nashville.
And so this lawsuit, I know there was somewhat of a similar lawsuit that was filed last year that essentially was kind of thrown out. What makes this one different?
Well, when the original lawsuit was filed, and I had spoken with the Save Our Fairgrounds people, I said it may be too soon. That Metro had expressed an intent to break the law, but they hadn't actually broken the law. And they had expressed an intent to do things that we believe they weren't legally able to do. But truthfully, they hadn't crossed the line. And we discussed that. And we wanted to make sure that Metro understood that we took this seriously. And if you look at how that lawsuit progressed, Metro immediately took the position that no one could challenge them. They took the position that no one had a right to stand up to them. But they also took the position that nothing had happened yet, that this was premature.
Right. That there was no proof of negligence or whatever damages.
Well, it hadn't happened. They just talked about doing it. They had talked about speeding on their way to Knoxville. They hadn't actually done it yet.
So without that actual injury, that's what the law calls it, an injury in fact, truthfully, we had filed the lawsuit too soon. There's always a little gray area in the law, but the chancellor saw it that way, and she said, basically, I think, come back when you've got injury, and we're back.
So now what does the lawsuit say? And how is this, again, different from the other one?
Well, it's very similar because the law hasn't changed.
Right.
And so the lawsuit, without getting sort of really boring and technical, asked the court to look at the Metro's actions and to see if it conforms with the law. I mean, that's all we're really asking, is that Metro conform with the law. And I'll give you a good example. They were trying to give away this 10 free acres that they wanted to give away. Well, the Metro Charter, the Metro Code, requires that a department surplus land before it can be disposed of. There's a procedure. The department surpluses it. It goes to the public property department.
Administrator of public property.
That's right. And then it goes out to all the other agencies in the city. And then if it's not usable, if no one wants this incredibly valuable land, then you have to have, and that land is worth more than $500,000. You have to have a state certified appraisal, and then you can dispose of that property. In this case, the Fair Board disposed of the property without ever even knowing what acreage they were going to dispose.
But they haven't even disposed of it because it's being used as we speak.
Right, and speaking of, there's a state fair happening.
And in the law states when the department surpluses the land and they declare it no longer suitable for their purposes, the director of public property takes possession of that land. That hasn't happened. In fact, he hasn't even been involved.
Now, with this lawsuit, how much time did the council members know about it? Do you think there was a chance that maybe the vote could have been pushed back?
The council members make their decision based on what they make their decisions on. I don't think the lawsuit changed the vote one way or another. The fact is, our founding fathers created 3 branches of government on purpose. There's an executive, legislative, and judicial. And there's a reason why those are there, for checks and balances. And when 2 of the branches violate their own charter and the existing laws, that's time for the 3rd branch to come in and say, okay, let's see what's going to happen now.
You obviously have been really in touch with people who live by there. After all of this, what are they now saying? I know are they defeated?
Some people were defeated before we ever started this process. And so it doesn't matter, the city's going to do what it wants. And the thing I've told them along this route is that, you know, if you take that approach, you're right. I choose not to take that approach. The fact is, we have a charter in this city, we have existing laws in this city. And if a government does not follow the laws that are established, that create that very foundation of our government, that is the beginning of the downfall of that government, and it's the beginning of anarchy. Quite frankly, I'll say that. Some folks may not, but that's what's happening when the government says, "We're the king. We have a brand new suit of clothes. Doesn't matter what you say. It's fabulous. We don't care what you think. We're going to do what we want." There's a problem with that because we live in a representative republic, and if our government doesn't follow its own laws, how then can we properly govern?
Moving forward, what are the next steps now?
Well, we filed this lawsuit before the council vote because we wanted the council to understand that we were serious about this. Things have happened since then that need to be incorporated. So generally, it's not uncommon that you file a lawsuit and you need to amend it, and probably sometime in the next day or 2. We will amend this lawsuit to add more factual claims. Maybe the legal claims will stay somewhat similar. We've had a lot of people come out of the woodwork interested in being plaintiffs in this case. A lot of people are going to be harmed by this.
Like whom? Are you willing to share?
Well, if you look at the people that are vendors, people who use the fairgrounds, I mean, part of what's going on here, and we'll probably get into it a little later, is that these steps that are being taken for MLS are going to bankrupt the Fair Board. Within a few years, the Fair Board will not be able to conduct the events that it conducts because all of its money is going to be given to MLS soccer. And so that's going to affect a lot of people. It's going to affect the raceway. It's going to affect the flea market. It's going to affect events. If you like to go to Christmas Village, if you like to go out for home shows, those things are going to be impossible to schedule if this goes through at the fairgrounds. We're not against MLS soccer. I love soccer. I played soccer in high school. It's probably the only sport I was ever any good at. But that doesn't mean I want a stadium destroying the fairgrounds. I mean, one of the things that we run into, when I was a kid, I grew up in Murfreesboro, we used to laugh about Nashville becoming Atlanta. There was a general sort of feeling that we didn't want to be Atlanta. And up until about 10 years ago, I think people still felt that in this town. And now we seem to be running headstrong towar's what can we destroy? If not, we're already there. If we're not already there.
Some would say we're there.
How much can we destroy and still be Nashville? How much of our heritage can we wipe out and still say we're Nashville? I mean, why don't they just bulldoze Music Row next and put something there? I mean, this is part of our heritage.
Some businesses on Music Row are already going away too. You know?
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
They some of those buildings I put on Music Row, I think ruined Music Row. I mean, it used to be sort of an eclectic, interesting area. I'm not against growth or anything like that, but the MLS Stadium could go about 5 other places. And the question is, why is nobody asking why we're not doing that?
You were going to add something, Duane.
Yeah. Well, he had mentioned Music Row and some of the other heritage of our city. The thing that's concerned me through this whole process, and I'll be doing this next month, 10 years, fighting to preserve our fairgrounds, is Nashville is a great city. It's been a great city for decades. But it's a great city not because of what team we have here or what group we have here. It's because of the people that are here and the parts of our city that's made it what it is. The history of Nashville is tremendously full of life-changing and world-changing events. And if we're willing to destroy those very historical places, the heritage of the community, in order to get a new shiny bauble, do we really care about our future? Because if you destroy the foundation of a city or the foundation of a house, eventually it will fall. And I don't want it destroyed. The fairgrounds dates back to the Revolutionary War and the payment for the service for John Rains in the Revolutionary War. I could go into the history. We'll talk about that.
Well, you say war, but really this is just part of that ongoing battle that I feel like
there's a battle for the well-being of the fairgrounds, and there's been a concerted effort by certain individuals within our city to destroy the fairgrounds and remake it for over 20 years.
All right, Duane, I know we have some callers on the line. We'll get to them in just a minute, so stay tuned. After the break, we'll be back more with this conversation.